Good evening and welcome to Sky Night. The moon is waxing gibbous with 90% illumination. It will be rising in the afternoon and shining most of the night in Sagittarius. Enable captions in your language to see local observing cities and times. Join us for a guided tour of the entire sky visible tonight. We begin our evening with Venus glowing halfway up the southern sky, while Vega and Deneb shine almost straight overhead alongside Albireo and Altair high in the south. As the night deepens, we turn to the eastern horizon to find the Crab Nebula and Mars rising together. Toward morning, the Andromeda Galaxy climbs almost straight overhead, joined by Saturn halfway up the southern sky, and the Triangulum Galaxy, Hamal, and Jupiter appearing high in the south and near the eastern horizon respectively, while the Perseids meteors streak high in the northern sky. We will conclude our tour by watching for the moon crossings by satellites. Venus appears as a dazzling silver-white point halfway up the southern sky, outshining every star and planet except the moon. This brilliant planet is visible to the naked eye, though binoculars or a telescope can reveal extra detail. It currently dominates the view within the constellation Virgo. In London, the last good chance to catch the planet before it sets arrives at 8:40 in the evening, while in New York you have that final view at 8:10 in the evening, and in Los Angeles the object sets shortly after 7:55 in the evening. Even though Venus is famous for its scorching heat, its atmosphere is a whirlwind. The superrotating clouds race around the planet in just 4 Earth days, with wind speeds of about 360 kilometers per hour, the fastest winds of any planet in our solar system. That means a gust on Venus can circle the whole world in less than a week, far outpacing the jet streams on Earth or the raging storms on Jupiter. Look almost straight overhead to find Vega, the bright blue-white anchor of the summer triangle asterism. This fast-spinning star is surrounded by a dusty debris disk and stands out clearly on summer nights. This star is up for all of them and reaches its highest point around 9:20 in the evening in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Vega is a star that rotates exceptionally fast around its own axis. Its equator spins at a linear velocity exceeding 200 kilometers per second, causing the star to flatten and making its pole significantly hotter and brighter than its equator. High in the southern sky, within the northern cross of Cygnus, lies Albireo, a golden yellow star marking the Swan's Head. While visible to the naked eye, a small telescope reveals its stunning nature as a double star with a contrasting blue companion. Around 10:15 in the evening, this star culminates in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Data from the Gaia spacecraft released in 2018 showed the two bright stars drifting in very different directions, leading many astronomers to suspect that Albireo is merely an optical double, a chance lineup rather than a true bound pair, though the question remains debated. Altair gleams high in the southern sky as the swift-flying star of Aquila the Eagle. Identify it easily as the bright white star flanked by two fainter neighbors, forming the low corner of the summer triangle. This star reaches its greatest altitude around 10:35 in the evening in Los Angeles, New York, and London. In 2007, Altair became the first main sequence star, besides our Sun, to have its surface directly imaged by astronomers using advanced interferometric techniques. The observations revealed an egg-shaped, distorted star caused by its extreme rotation every 8 hours, a rotation so rapid that it spins at 90% the speed needed to tear itself apart. Deneb is a blue-white star that marks the tail of the swan in the constellation Cygnus. Look almost straight overhead to find this bright star, which forms the top point of the Northern Cross asterism and completes the summer triangle. It is easily visible to the naked eye within the band of the Milky Way. This star remains above the horizon all night and culminates around 11:25 in the evening in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Due to its position close to the galactic plane, Deneb is often used by astronomers as a reference point. It serves to study the structure and chemical composition of more distant parts of our galaxy's spiral arm. Our featured deep sky object is the Crab Nebula, the shredded wreck of a star that exploded in the year 1054. Find it rising near the eastern horizon by locating Zeta Tauri at the tip of the bull's southern horn and moving a finger-width away. A telescope shows it as a small, oval smudge. The nebula rises first in London at 12:19 after midnight, then appears in New York at 12:55 after midnight, and finally climbs into view for Los Angeles at 1:09 in the morning. At its heart lies the corpse of the star those medieval observers watched, a city-sized neutron star spinning 30 times every second. Mars appears as a distinct orange-red point rising near the eastern horizon. Look low in the east to spot this planet as it climbs above the skyline tonight. In Los Angeles, it stands highest at 2:06 in the morning, while New York and London follow at 1:50 in the morning and 1:11 in the morning respectively. In Robert Heinlein's 1949 novel Red Planet, the planet Mars is a bustling colony where humans live alongside intelligent, three-legged Martians who can vanish at will, and where giant Martian canals crisscross the desert landscape. Heinlein leaned on the now-disproven theories of Percival Lowell, who convinced the world that these canals were real, whereas today we know the Martian surface is pocked with ancient riverbeds and massive volcanoes, but holds no such engineered waterways. We now turn to the crossings of Deimos and Phobos across the disk of Mars. Deimos makes its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 54 minutes. In Los Angeles, this event occurs between 6:34 in the morning and 7:28 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon. In New York, the crossing takes place between 9:34 in the morning and 10:28 in the morning with Mars above the horizon. In London, it happens between 2:34 in the afternoon and 3:28 in the afternoon as Mars stands above the horizon. Phobos makes its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 52 minutes. In Los Angeles, this crossing occurs between 9:34 in the morning and 10:26 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon. In New York, the event takes place between 12:34 in the afternoon and 1:26 in the afternoon with Mars above the horizon. In London, Mars is below the horizon. Phobos makes its next crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 51 minutes. In London, this transit occurs between 1:14 in the morning and 2:05 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon, whereas in Los Angeles and New York, Mars is below the horizon. Phobos makes its next crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 52 minutes. In New York, this crossing occurs between 3:53 in the morning and 4:45 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon. In London, the event takes place between 8:53 in the morning and 9:45 in the morning with Mars above the horizon. In Los Angeles, Mars is below the horizon. The Andromeda Galaxy, our Milky Way's future merger partner, is visible to the naked eye almost straight overhead. To find it, start at the corner of the Great Square of Pegasus and hop along 2 stars to reach a faint, pale oval smudge. The galaxy is up for all of them and reaches its highest point around 3:25 in the morning in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Andromeda contains approximately 1 trillion stars, making it the largest galaxy in the local group, significantly more than the Milky Way's estimated 400 billion stars. Saturn glows with a steady, unblinking golden light halfway up the southern sky in the constellation Pisces. Though fainter than Jupiter, its calm yellow hue makes it easy to identify against the stars. The planet reaches its greatest altitude around 3:40 in the morning in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Saturn holds a strange record in our solar system. It is the most flattened planet, so squashed by its own spin that its equator bulges out more than 10% wider than the distance from pole to pole. This extreme shape means that if you could stand on Saturn's equator, you would feel a gravity about a quarter weaker than at the poles, a difference so sharp it makes the planet feel like a giant, spinning donut rather than a solid ball. The Triangulum Galaxy is a nearby spiral that appears as a broad, ghostly glow high in the southern sky. Use binoculars to spot it between the Andromeda Galaxy and the small triangle of stars in Triangulum, ideally under dark skies. The galaxy culminates around 4:15 in the morning in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Unlike most large spirals, the Triangulum galaxy has no central bulge and apparently no supermassive black hole, with any such object limited to at most a few thousand solar masses. Jupiter rises near the eastern horizon as a bright point in the constellation Cancer. Watch the eastern skyline for this massive planet as it emerges into view tonight. In Los Angeles and New York, the galaxy rises around 4:40 in the morning, while London sees it rise at 4:09 in the morning. When Galileo Galilei spotted 4 moons circling Jupiter in 1610, they were the first worlds ever seen orbiting another planet, and the sight helped topple the belief that everything revolved around the Earth. Hamal is one of the 50 brightest stars in the night sky and is visible to the naked eye within the constellation Aries. To find it, follow the chain from Meerut through Sheraton until you reach the brightest point of Aries, which sits high in the southern sky. This star requires no equipment to see, though a telescope can reveal extra detail. This star reaches its highest point around 4:50 in the morning in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Hamal is the 49th brightest star in the entire night sky. The Perseids meteor shower is still active tonight, with meteors streaking away from a radiant high in the northern sky within Perseus. Although past its peak, you can still catch about 6 meteors per hour by looking high north and letting your eyes wander slightly off the radiant. The radiant culminates around 5:45 in the morning in Los Angeles and New York, while it is highest at 5:20 in the morning in London. Tonight, satellites cross the moon's disk 42 times, with 29 of those tracks passing close to towns and settlements, and 6 tracks making up the selected near-town subset. Tiangong Space Station begins its ground path over the open Indian Ocean at 6:27 in the evening and ends northeast of Bayan at 11:45 in the evening. For an observer standing on the narrow path, the crossing of the disk takes only about 1 second. The second of the night, Tiangong Space Station begins its ground path near Bija at 7:59 in the evening and ends near Darhan at 1:17 in the morning. The third of the night, International Space Station begins its ground path over the open Indian Ocean at 11:10 in the evening and ends northwest of Intai at 2:19 in the morning. The fourth of the night, Hubble Space Telescope begins its ground path over the open Indian Ocean at 11:13 in the evening and ends south of Patuakhali at 2:21 in the morning. The fifth of the night, Hubble Space Telescope begins its ground path near Pekanbaru at 12:05 after midnight and ends over the open Pacific at 2:12 in the morning. The same satellite crosses again. The sixth of the night, Hubble Space Telescope begins its ground path over the open Atlantic at 12:54 after midnight and ends over the Sahara at 3:03 in the morning. The same satellite crosses again. Join us again tomorrow for your nightly sky guide, and until then, clear skies and good observing.